Alright guys, so today we're gonna... Wait, what's going on? We got to move! There's no time to explain! What is it? What's going on? They're exterminators! Why are they coming after me? No time to explain! Move! Get to the portal! Wait! We need the computer! Why? I can just get another one! Just grab it! Let's go! This is the year 2025. They're trying to destroy you because your videos are making people too smart. They can fight back because of the intelligence they have. But nobody watches my videos. They will, but you have to keep making them. We got to get you back to your own time. You have to finish that video. Get to the aviation vehicle. We made it to the second portal. You have to go back to your own time and finish the video. But what about you? You'll still be in danger. Don't worry. I will return. Now go. Oh boy, that was intense. Wait a minute. Has the mic been on this entire time? Alright, sorry about that guys. I had some time-sensitive matters to attend to. But now that I'm back, I wanted to address something. Up to this point, I had been making videos based on economic principles, such as like the GDP video, the unemployment video, and the most recent how economy or knowing about the economy can stop wars video. But I realized I never got around to explaining to you guys what exactly economics is. And considering that I've already put out a few videos based on economic concepts and principles and ideas, and I probably will put out a few more in the future, I probably should get around to explaining just what that is, what economics is, because believe it or not, there are a lot of misconceptions surrounding exactly what it is. So, to answer this question, let's go ahead and look at a quote from dear old Alfred Marshall. Everybody knows him. He's famous. He says, political economy or economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of material requisites of all well-being. Thus, it is on one side a study of wealth and on the other, more important side, a part of the study of man. I know that sounded boring, but please don't leave yet. I'm pretty sure that the fate of the future depends on it. But before we get into it, I just want to go over some misconceptions that people have about economy. The first is that it's not just getting rich. That's more running your own business or doing something along those lines. Now, don't get me wrong, how your business runs is heavily dependent upon how the economy is working, but ultimately that's separate from being an economist. Another misconception that people have is that economy, or the job of economists, is just to study the stock market, which is also not true. I mean, yes, you definitely look at the stock market from time to time. It's one of the indicators as to how good or bad the economy is doing. So if it's going down for long periods of time, then that might be one of the indicators as to how good or bad the economy is doing. But that's definitely not necessarily the primary focus, because again, we're going through unemployment and all of those kinds of things that are good indicators as well. And then there's a whole other thing that's a bit of a long explanation. It's a whole other video, but point being that it's not really just the study of the stock market. It involves it from time to time, but that's not really the whole thing or the primary focus necessarily. Alright, and now that we got that out of the way, you might be still thinking, what on earth is Alfred Marshall trying to say? Heck, for that matter, who is he? I'm pretty sure what he's saying is just mumble jumble, right? Well, believe it or not, when you're actually reading through what he says, it makes a lot of sense. And by the way, if you don't know who Alfred Marshall is a very famous person in the economic world. He's kind of like the Alfred Wagner of the economy world. Or the Isaac Newton of the economy world. Along those lines, he was kind of like one of the people who discovered a lot of the major principles of how the economy works. Now, what he's trying to say, if you look through it, is basically, or at least how I would put it to you, it's how well everybody's working together, more or less, to produce things. So if you look at his quote here, he says, political economy or economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. Basically, he's looking at all of mankind more or less as like the business and how well everybody's working together. I guess now is a good time to mention that economists do not look at people as just numbers on a piece of paper. Don't worry, they're not that heartless. And I think that's one of the other rumors floating around, not quite as common, but I think it pops up here and there. But rest assured, that's not an inherent trait of every economist. It's a bit more how like an anthropologist would look at, say, a colony of ants, or how a marine biologist would look at, say, a school of fish. That kind of thing. Let me give you another analogy that I think would probably work better. Imagine that I have a car, and this car has an engine that's never been seen before, works on entirely different principles. Everybody is just awed at how different this car works. So I drive this car into a mechanic shop. I go up to the mechanic and I say, listen, this car is in charge of making sure the entire Earth's atmosphere does not go poison. I know that's not realistic, but just imagine that's how this car works, this magical, weird car. And I would say, look, this engine needs to run continuously. I need you to maintain it, and if it breaks, to repair it. And he says, I don't have any blueprints. And I go, well, yeah, you're going to have to study it. And then I leave. So now he has to go and study the engine. And he goes ahead, studies the engine, and finds out that the engine doesn't use regular oil to stay lubricated. It uses vegetable oil, let's say. So then he figures out, okay, I need vegetable oil. He goes, gets the vegetable oil, he pours it in, he figures out too much, makes it splurt out. He figures out too little, makes it overheat. So through trial and error, he figures out, okay, this is how much I need to pour. And then let's say something happens and it starts to like really malfunction. The air starts to get funky because this mystical car for some reason controls the air. And then he sits there, he looks it over top to bottom, he's looking at the gears, he's trying to figure out how everything's supposed to be interlocking, he's trying to figure out what's so abnormal about it. And then he sees that one of the gears has a few teeth missing. So every time it spins, it's not completely rotating. So he needs to go and find another gear. Now, unfortunately, this gear has yet to be made for anybody else. So he has to custom make this gear. So he sits down, cuts out the gear, physically removes the gear, temporarily makes the air a little bit funky because he had to remove the gear, puts the gear back in, takes a couple days or weeks for the air to be replenished, but then after that, the engine's working fine and he continues to try to maintain it. That's a lot more like how economists try to maintain the economy. They're looking at this ever-working machine that's kind of hooked into all of us. So they're seeing this machine more or less, and they're trying to study it so that they can maintain it and give us all just generally better conditions to be in, honestly, because the better the economy is, the better we are off as individuals. So that's more or less how economists study and work on the economy. And if you look at my previous videos on economy, which if you haven't seen them, I'll leave them down in the description below, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, when we're talking about GDP or GDP per capita, along with being used for a bunch of other calculations, which is for a whole other video, it's also used to get a general idea of how good or bad each individual is doing in an area. So if they're doing bad, they want to know how to fix it so that everybody can be doing good. And if they're doing good, they want to know what's happening so that they can help everybody else who's not doing good. When we're talking about unemployment, then we're trying to figure out who has a job, why do they have a job, why don't they have a job? Because of course it's important that you have a job so that you can provide for yourself with basic necessities like food and water and, so on and so forth. And of course, my most previous video on how knowing about economics can help you stop wars, well, I think we can all agree that stopping wars would be a preferable thing. I think that would be a good thing, and I hope you do too. And like I said in my previous video, if you don't think stopping wars is a good thing, please leave your house right now and go seek psychiatric help. Now, believe it or not, economics goes far deeper into your lives than even just that. I mean, you choosing to watch this video is an economic concern. You might be thinking, what? How is that an economic concern? Please tell me. Well, I'm glad you asked. See, in economics, there's this principle called opportunity cost. Basically, what it means is that when you do or buy something, that's one less thing that you can do or buy, and the alternative you can no longer do with that portion of time or money that you chose to spend. Take, for instance, an ice cream cone. Let's say you had $5 and you bought a $5 ice cream cone. You can no longer spend that $5 on something else. And just like you watching this video, you're currently spending 10, 15 minutes or so watching this video. That means that that's 10 or 15 minutes you cannot spend doing something else. So you chose this video over doing anything else, and I thank you for that. And I will do my best to make sure that it was worth giving up the whatever alternative was possible for you. But even me making this video is an opportunity cost. I mean, not spending a couple hours making this thing as opposed to doing virtually anything else. That's time that I can no longer spend doing something else because I spent it making this video. So needless to say, economics is something that is extremely integrated into just about everybody's lives, or at least if you live in any group of people or a large group of people, it's extremely connected to you. So because of that, you probably want to know how it works and what's going on, especially when you got talking heads telling you that the economy's this and the economy's that and the economy's bad, the economy's good, so on and so forth. You want to know who's telling the truth and who's just blowing out hot air. But on top of that, you also want to know about economics just to figure out what on earth is happening around you. There's a lot of stuff that goes on around you that you may not realize because you don't understand principles of economics. And there's a lot of solutions that can come about when you really understand principles of economics. Take, for instance, the environment. Now, of course, laws should be passed to make sure that people don't do bad things, or at least try to prevent people from doing bad things. I'm sure there are people who will always break the law. But on top of that, when you understand the economy, you understand that the best way to get people to protect the environment, or even large companies, is to give them incentive to. Not necessarily to legally force them, although you can do it in conjunction with that. A lot of the time, things like that become even more efficient when you do stuff like finding incentive for companies to do things like that, as opposed to just trying to legally arm wrestle them into doing things like that. Now, of course, there are a ton of times where legally arm wrestling them is 100% the only option and completely required. But my point here being is that a lot of solutions can be found when you understand even just the most basic principles of economics. And it's because of that I've been making economic videos. So, hopefully I was able to make your opportunity cost for watching this video worthwhile. But now, it's finally time to end it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want more videos like this or other stuff, because I am not just an economics channel, I give out general information as well, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell button. I post every other Sunday. Oh, hey! Hey, you're back!
I have returned.
Well, would you like to give the outro?
But of course, I am a big fan of the show. I've always wanted to say this. Hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.